everyone, and welcome back to another video on our YouTube channel. If you are new here, welcome to the Black Kids White Coats YouTube channel, where we help pre-med and medical students put their best foot forward to succeed. If you don't know who I am, my name is Adama, and I am a second-year family medicine resident in Southern California. Y'all, it's basically almost May, and family medicine residency is 3 years. So the fact that I'm really about to be in my final year of residency blows my mind. My other two co-hosts live in the Midwest, but one of them is coming over to the West Side, so I'm so excited. But yes, I wanted to come on here and make a video, especially for my pre-med students who feel like they don't know what to do to put their best foot forward to succeed throughout their college career. And I know it can be cutthroat in the pre-med world, honey. So I'm going to give you some tips and tricks that I used personally that really helped set me apart from the other students. Just a little tidbit, I started college in 2010. Assist graduated in 2014. Don't do the math. And I have professors and TAs, teaching assistants, who I worked with as like a freshman in college who still remember me by name, by face to this day for good reasons. So I wanted to give you some tips and tricks that I personally used that helped me become that student. The student that everybody knew, everyone was trying to be like, but not everyone had the sauce. And this video is sponsored by Blueprints, which is a company that helps both pre-med and pre-law students put their best foot forward by offering prep courses in the LSAT and MCAT, which are two prerequisite exams that you need to get into these professional schools like med school and law school. So I am going to be giving away 2 med-driven MCAT prep courses. 2, completely free. So stay tuned to the end of the video to figure out how you can enter and win. So, my tips. Tip number 1, ask questions. This is especially important for my people who, because of COVID, they're at home doing Zoom lectures. This is even more important for you. Please ask questions. I know, especially as you get into those higher division classes like biophysical chemistry, biochemistry, analytical physics, which I took biophysical chemistry. I never really understood what it was about, but Assist still got an A. So especially in those classes where it's like the cream of the crop. If you made it that far, then obviously you got something going on. Especially in those classes, you might think, especially because it's quiet, typically in those classes, no one really has questions. It can be really intimidating to ask questions because you might feel like you're the only one who doesn't get it, which, let me tell you, 99% of the people in those classes don't know what's going on. And the other 1% are repeating the class. No shade. And that's the only reason why they know what's going on. So asking questions helps in 3 different ways. Number 1, and which is the most important, is that the professor is going to break it down so that you understand it. Going in with the mindset of, oh, I don't get this, I'm going to review it at home, does not serve you. The reason being is you're going to go home, it's going to look like hieroglyphics, you're going to study in your bed, get tired, your friend's going to ask you to go out. You're never going to look at that material again. So if you ask while you're in the class, the professor will break it down for you. Which brings me to the second benefit of asking questions. The professor learns who you are, whether that's by face, whether that's by name. And number 3, you're also helping those other students who really don't know what questions to ask and they're too shy to ask. So not only are you helping yourself build a strong foundation, you're helping your fellow classmates and you're helping your face get out there with the professor. Which brings me to tip number 2, which is if your professor has office hours, go to them. Even if it's email and they don't have office hours, email them any questions that you have. again, it brings you exposure in terms of building that relationship with your professor. And what you'll find is that your professors, even the ones that may not seem as personable, they want their students to succeed, especially the ones that are taking initiative and trying to get their ish done. So likely what's going to happen is when you go to office hours or email questions, you're going to be like, professor, I don't get X, Y, and Z. Your professor is going to break it down for you, either A, break it down for you, or B, tell you, you don't need to know that. That's not going to be on the test, which serves you twofold, because you get a basis of the information that's important and your professor is going to break it down for you. And then the night before the exam, when everyone's cramming 50 pages because nobody asks questions and nobody knows what's going on, you already know that of those 50 pages, maybe 5 are important. You set that foundation by talking to your professor consistently, so you know what the move is, what they're thinking, how they're probably going to ask questions. That way you study your 5 to 7 pages of important material, you sleep, wake up the next day feeling refreshed, eat that meal, slay that test, set the curve. Rather than if you don't have that foundation, you're freaking out, you spend all night studying those 50 pages, get 30 hours of sleep, your hair looking like it's a rat nest, you're so nervous you can't eat, and then you take the exam and you just pray. And that's if you believe in God or a higher power. So, tip number 1, recap, ask questions. Tip number 2, go to office hours or stay in constant communication with your professor. Which brings me to tip number 3. If you are interested in research, do research. Reach out to people. If you've been doing steps 1 and 2, you will have already built a relationship with your professor. If you see that they are doing research that you're interested in, you've already showed them that you're driven, that you're passionate, that you're hardworking. And so if you reach out to them and say, hey, Dr. Smith, I've seen that you're doing research on, the evolution of the placenta. I'm really interested. This is what I hope to accomplish. These are my goals and dreams. Is there a potential for a student research position in your lab? If the professor knows you, bada bing, bada boom, they're going to make it happen for you. And if they don't have that position available, they can steer you in the direction of someone who may have a position that is a better fit for you. If for whatever reason you're not communicating with your professors, or none of them are doing stuff that you're interested in, but you find a professor that is, email them. What's the worst that they can say? No? Okay, move on. So just reach out. Closed mouths don't get fed. So if you want to do research, do it. Reach out to people. You can even look up grants. They have plenty of grants, especially for underrepresented minority students that are interested in higher education, whether that's PhD or an MD. They have grants where people will pay you literally to go to school and do research. I was a part of one of those programs. My last 2 years of college, I did not have to pay a dime, and they gave me a stipend for rent. So I was literally going to college for free. Things are out there. You just have to look for them and you have to ask. I know it's scary, especially as a college student, but you got to do what you got to do to get where you need to go. Which brings me to tip number 4. If you don't like research, don't do research. Do what it is that you're passionate about. If that's outreach, reach out for groups in the community. If that's working directly with patients, you can do like a clinical care extender program at your local hospital. You can even reach out to providers in the fields that you're interested in and say, hey, Dr. So-and-so, my name is Sally. I really want to go into family medicine. I want to have as much exposure as possible. Is it possible for me to shadow you? You can find a whole directory of people in the area and just email them. And I'm sure somebody knows somebody that's willing to help you, whether that's shadowing a couple times a week. And you may not know much because you're a college student. That's okay. You can still show your interest by showing up on time, being professional, asking questions. There are no dumb questions in medicine. You cannot assume things in medicine. That's something that you will learn. Which brings me to tip number 5. which is a continuation of tip number 4. Do what it is that you love. You have the rest of your life to be in medicine. So if you want to be a history major, be a history major. If you want to do econ, do econ. If you want to travel the world, travel the world. If you want to do study abroad, do study abroad. You have the rest of your life, literally, to practice. A couple years, it's not going to make a difference. If you do a history major, all you need are the prerequisites. That way you get your prereqs done, but you're also doing something that you're passionate about and something that you really, really love. Which brings me to our next tip. Number 6, ace that MCAT. There are a lot of ways that people study, whether that's buying books and self-studying at home. Some people like a prep course where they give you a schedule and you do it on your own, but they make the schedule for you. And some people, if they are really fortunate, they're able to afford in-person prep classes, which I find that given that we're in a pandemic, that's not really happening right now. So the benefits of prepping for the MCAT is you have a better chance of getting a great MCAT score. A lot of these books and sessions and prep courses, though, can be really expensive. So that's why we partnered up with Blueprints MCAT, which is a subsection of Blueprints, which is a prep company, especially that makes prep courses for students who are taking the MCAT. And we are giving away 2 free courses with this video, so please stay tuned to the end. So tip number 6, yes, take some type of prep course, whether that's buying books and do self-study, purchasing a prep course where it is self-study but you have your schedule already mapped out for you, and if it's not a pandemic and you got the vaccine, going in person for in-person prep courses where they give you homework and they check on it, which again, if you are very fortunate to afford those, kudos to you, because those are pricey, but they really do help. But it's okay also if you can't, for whatever reason, do in-person prep courses. I know people that have done phenomenal and ended up in the top med schools in the country, and they studied at home, and that's okay. Which brings me to my last and final tip when it comes to applying for medical school. Please be on time. Applications are due in June, so you really want to start getting things together a couple of months before. I would recommend asking your letter writers in January, February. You can ask a couple months later, but with applications being due in June, you want to make sure you get everything tied together by May. And if you ask them in April, you're gonna have to expect that they might forget. Delays might happen. Sometimes a health crisis will happen, which happened in my case with one of my letter writers. You really never know. So you want to give them a couple of months just so that you sit pretty and you don't have to worry about anything and freak out about getting things together last minute. With your med school application as well, that's what brings me back to tip number 4, which is doing what you love. It will come across in your application if you're doing something just to say you did it and not because you're passionate about it. And when they ask you in your med school interview about things that you've done, that you've written about, trust me, as someone who has interviewed potential medical students, you can tell the difference between whether someone is really passionate about something or if they're just kind of meh about it. And it comes across really disingenuous, and it's not a good look if you do something just for the sake of doing it, even if it's what people would consider amazing. Just to let you know, there is no cookie cutter way to get into medicine. Some people go straight through. Some people take 10 years off. Some people go into a completely different career and find their way back. There's no one way to get into medicine. So that's why I just say enjoy the journey and you will get there when you get there. So to conclude this video, my 7 tips. Number 1, ask questions. Number 2, go to office hours or be in communication with your professor. Tip number 3, research. If you like research, reach out to people. Tip number 4, if you hate research, There are other things to do besides research if it's something that you're passionate about. Tip number 5, pursue what it is that you love. You don't have to be a biology, biochemistry major if you want to go into medical school. Trust me, med school is oversaturated with those people. And I promise you, when it comes down to medical school courses, nobody remembers what they studied in biochemistry. Nobody. Trust me. It all looks like hieroglyphics all over again. Tip number 6, get a prep course for the MCAT if you have that and that's within your means. And tip number 7, be on time with your application. So that brings me to the end of the 7 tips on how to put your best foot forward for this contest. To win an MCAT prep course from the Blueprints Company, what I'm going to need you to do is I'm going to need you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Black Kids White Coats. I want you to subscribe to our Instagram, which is Black Kids White Coats. You also need to subscribe to the Blueprint MCAT prep course. Their Instagram is also in the description if for whatever reason you forget. And then we want you to just comment on why you want a med school MCAT prep course. That's all you got to do. The contest will be open for 4 days and the winner will be announced May 2nd. Good luck. Best of luck. You got this. You can kill it. Bye.